goodness gracious, Cretaceous, Bernie Sanders is going to admit that Democrats don't hold fair elections and are also a threat to democracy. Really? Oh, thank you, Bernie, for this, for something that we've been telling you for 8 years.
Her, we didn't even know if Biden was president. We didn't even know if these were her talking points. And we felt that over the last 4 elections, Democrats, we felt that we didn't have a say on who could be president. We talk a lot about the Republicans being autocrats and oligarchs and taking over democracy, but from the Democrat perspective, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, I felt like the Democratic Party completely removed the democratic process from its constituents. And I think they need to have some accountability of that.
No argument here.
I donated for you. I mean, I wanted you to, like, the 2016. I was like, this is going to happen. This guy's going to do it, and it felt like they stole it from me. And I'll be honest, it broke my heart when you supported them. Look,
and it broke all of our hearts. I was there in Philly. I saw it in 2020, 2016, 2020. Wasted my life on this guy.
But you have, in the world that I live in, you got a choice, and I mean, a lot of people, including my wife, agree with you. But, you know, you're down to a choice. Is it going to be Hillary Clinton or is it going to be Donald Trump? Not a great choice.
But it ended up being him anyway, so why don't we burn it down?
Yes!
Well, because it's easy to say. Burning it down means that children are not going to have, you know, food to eat, that the schools will deteriorate, people will not have health care.
I got it.
And I'm an elected official. I got to represent the people.
That's fair.
And I can't turn my back on.
But then could we not also say, if ostensibly there hasn't been a fair primary for the Democrats since 2008, are they not also a threat to democracy? Yes. We often hear.
Fair enough. That is. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that point.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Let me get this straight. Bernie, people were asking you to help lead the way, the foundations, okay? I did an interview with Jimmy Dore way back in 2017 at McCormick Place for the People's Summit. People were screaming for you. I remember it. I remember the last day when you were speaking to people, and so many in the audience were saying that you got robbed and that they stole it from you, and you dismissed them. I remember that day. I saw that day. Get out of here. But hold on. Look. Let's be clear, because Bernie started to talk a little bit more about the establishment. I know. Just, it's like, gee, Bernie, you could have brought this up earlier on, right?
70s, 60s, Democrats caught on that you could raise a lot of money from wealthy people, and that. So and it gets back to campaign financing and all that stuff. So you got a Democratic establishment now, which is funded by wealthy people. You have consultants who are really way out of touch with reality, who make a whole lot of money in campaigns, and working class is ignored. Donald Trump comes along and says, I care about you, which was a lie. So
I don't know if that's a lie. I'd give pushback on that. I think that it has to be proven that it's a lie.
All right, I'll prove it.
Yes, thank you. And you're right. I could look through rose-colored glasses, but the idea, I think that when people are struggling, anybody who goes, "Hey, I'm going to help you out."
70.
So look, I mean, gee, Bernie, you could have done it really a long time ago. It's like better late than never. But okay, all right, hold on. But here's his commentary on Kamala Harris. Don't worry. He's even going to talk about Hillary Clinton too. I know. Brace yourself for that one.
He ran on this idea of, we're going to make it better for you, instead of Kamala seemed to run on this idea like, hey, it's good. We're going to keep doing the exact same thing, right, which is a losing strategy.
You got it.
So
that was her bloody consult. I mean, I know Kamala. She's a friend. She's very smart. That was what her bloody consultants told her to say. I begged them. I'm just between you.
Why can't she push back? Like, at a certain, like,
you're right. Look, there's no argument.
And this is the problem I think a lot of voters had, is like, they didn't even know if it was her. We didn't even know if Biden was president. We didn't even know if these were her talking points. He ran on this idea.
So, all right, because it's going to be rewinding. It's going to be rewinding a little bit, but hold on. There's also, I find it odd that he was saying, like, no, I begged them not to do it. I begged them not to do it. I begged them not to do it. Well, look, Democrats, I mean, especially you, Bernie, you know just how dirty they play. I mean, case in point, and by the way, Nini64 says his voice gotten deeper, so you know he's serious. Serious. And Old Man Barker says, rabble, 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 rabble. And Kevin Madison says, stop calling these parasites friends, Bernie. He has no other, he doesn't have any other thing to say.
The hatred that we felt in 2016, 2020 from the Democratic establishment. I'll give you an example. We would do rallies and we had thousands of people, often
Yeah,
young
amazing.
people of color coming out, working class people coming out. They were great, full of energy. Yeah. And then we go to Democratic Party events. There'd be a few hundred people, mostly older, whiter, wealthier. And you saw the clash. And the establishment did not want to open the door. They hated the idea that all these people whose hands were a little bit dirty, who didn't have PhDs or weren't wealthy, imagine walking in. It's my party, man. You ain't getting in.
Yes.
We will fight you in the most ruthless ways that we can. And that's the struggle. Are they going to open the door, or are they prepared to lose elections, literally, and maintain the
status
go
quo.
down with the Titanic? So the hatred that we felt.
Well, they're going to go down like the Titanic. That's what the Democrats are going to do. The Democrats are going to go down like the Titanic because they have nothing else to run on. All right. And Sanders, he also talks about how when asked about his grassroots supporters were racist and misogynists, remember that in 2016? So if you were a Bernie Sanders supporter, and if you were a woman, a black man, a Latino man, an Asian man, Muslim man, Jewish man, or a woman of any kind of color or creed, any generation, congratulations. In 2016, all of you became straight white males. Yeah, remember? Because all Bernie Sanders supporters were racist and misogynist. Congratulations. For that one moment in time, that blip in the radar, you were all straight white males. Woogie, boogie, 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 a woogie, boogie, 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 boogie.
We have a question we want to ask about what happened to you in 2016 with this Bernie Bros movement, where your followers are seeing they have a racism problem, a misogyny problem. Do you think that's a super PAC thing behind that?
That was the Democratic establishment. That was the.
Wow. Okay.
That was just they were sitting there. We had a lot of young people. We had people of color, and they create this kind of myth with the help of the corporate media and all that stuff.
It's kind of interesting to that note is during this election, the podcast space, which the Democrats largely avoided, they feel had some influence in the election, and they started to label us the podcast bros and said that we were sexist and we were racist and bigoted. It's almost like it's the exact same strategy to get you out of there.
Yeah, that's what the liberal elite trying to do.
And you keep calling them your friends. Tiberius Monk, it's stunning how much a nutless one of Bernie has become. We went to your rallies and supported you, Bernie, and you turned your back on us. Shame. Absolutely. Right, Rooney. Shame. Shame on them all. Of course, one other thing here, too. Let me go and pull this up here. Let me just pull this up here, too. Hold on.
Are you going to run for president?
Please ask yes. I'm 83 years of age, so that is. I think I've run my last race. But,
now, does that mean
zero fair races?
Does that mean that this oligarchy tour is you passing the baton?
No, don't look at it like that. The oligarchy tour is.
I think we're all looking at it like that.
No, it's not a passing the baton. I happen to, I think Alexandria is great, but it's not my job to determine who the new leaders are. People have each of them, as I mentioned, in the House, there are a lot of great people. In the Senate, there's some good people. And there are people who are not in office right now. But the oligarchy tour was an effort to say to the country that there are people all over America who are going to stand up to this oligarchy. They don't want a government of billionaires. They're going to stand up to authoritarianism.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it was a lightning in the bottle kind of moment, okay? This is the actions of Bernie Sanders. He chose not to fight, and he chose not to do anything, and he chose to let the Democrats walk all over him, and he chose this and that and everything else in between. He made his bed and he's laid in it. Okay, that's what happened with Senator Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders' campaign was nothing more than a distraction. Bernie Sanders' campaign was nothing more than a waste of time because he didn't have any follow through. All right. How many of us in independent media were inspired by Bernie Sanders? A lot. I mean, hell, yeah, there was a time. Jimmy Dore was one of the leading people saying, hey, Bernie, start a third party. So many of us really wanted to see something happen. You know, nothing came through. And now he's admitting this, 8 years later down the road? Okay, great. 8 years later. Or better yet, wait, it's 9 years later, right? I don't know. 9 years later. How terrible. How sad. 9 years later, you're admitting that this was all just the Democrats screwing us up, failing us. 9 years of a waste. And so the Fight the Oligarchy tour, oh, well, he threw AOC under the bus, maybe. But one can argue that whether or not he chooses, maybe he's being strategic, he's strategizing, he's being tactful with his comments. He doesn't want to name AOC as his successor, but do I see AOC potentially, again, this is my opinion, do I see her potentially having maybe a run in 2028? I'd be a fool not to say that she wouldn't have a chance. I think she does have a chance in comparison to Bernie. Bernie's on his way out. Nancy Pelosi ain't no spring chicken. Chucky Boy Schumer's despised. Hakeem Jeffries is nothing more than a wet noodle. Who else is there? There are some Democrat governors, to be fair, but I mean, to energize the base, they don't have anybody else. I mean, Bernie Sanders' time is done. It is over with. Cool Blue 71, thank you for the super chat. On the negative side, Bernie shows us what having no dignity looks like. On the positive side, Bernie shows us voting for Democrats is not worthy. Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for your generosity and kindness and super chats for everything else in between. We are very grateful and thankful to have all of this solidarity and support. But as a note of this, he's saying this now. And he's doing this now, but he would never do. Imagine if Biden was elected into office or Kamala. You think Bernie would be having this conversation? No, he wouldn't. You think Bernie would be saying anything like this if the Democrats won in 2024? No, he wouldn't. He'd shut up. He wouldn't say a single word. But now that the orange boogeyman is in office, well, I guess all what they can do now is say, yeah, turns out it was the Democrats' fault. Turns out the Democrats didn't have anything. Turns out the Democrats didn't have a leg to stand on. Turns out that the Democrats just were nothing more than a waste of freaking time, effort, energy, and everything else. And Bernie's now admitting it. Great, Bernie. Great to finally have you add in your 2 cents. Great to finally have you speak out when people were asking you for quite some time to do the right thing. I know we were waiting, but how much longer do we have to wait? Because the thing is, if you're waiting for a politician to save you, you're going to be disappointed. And what I would have to say is, Bernie, if you had Donald Trump's attitude, people would respect you more. And I think I'm going to leave this with the words of Donald Trump just to trigger any kind of Bernie Sanders stand. Trump, what do you got to say?
I got the World Cup, I got them both, and I said, man, I won't be president. I got the Olympics and the World Cup, and I won't be president. And they're going to forget that I got them. Nobody's going to mention it because, a little bit, that's the way life is. And then they rigged the election. And then I said, you know what I'll do? I'll run again, and I'll shove it up their ass. And that's what I did. And all of a sudden, I then realized, I said, you know what? I got the Olympics, I got the World Cup, and I got the 250th. Look at the way this works out. So if they would have left us alone and wouldn't have cheated on the election and wouldn't have rigged it, I would have been retired right now. I would have been happily doing something else. And instead, they have me for 4 more years.
And imagine if Bernie had balls, but nope, no balls, Bernie. So I'll leave it like that. Trump's the bad guy? Dude, your best friends with people who are stabbing you in the back, Bernie. To quote Jimmy Dore, you're a cuck.
If you fool me once, it's because I didn't think a guard was needed. If you fool me twice, it's because I didn't learn the lesson, so it bears repeating. If you try the same play 3 times running, it's because you know what's coming, and you didn't come to lead, you came to purposefully be misleading. Democracy is dry. It's been a century bleeding. The husk is gaping open to the sky, out in the field where all the sheep just keep on circling and worrying and bleeding. They're waiting for the shepherd that they've tried to hide their faith in, but he's so appealing. They'd gladly give their fleece. It's such a freeing feeling that even when he leads them to the ledge and starts to urge them on, they're positively beaming. They were told that they were on their way to save democracy, so even as they plummet, they just gloat. They don't consider screaming. And halfway up the cliff, the shepherd's cozy little mittens wrap around the staff of shattered human hopes on which he's leaning. He shows the gentle grin that used to stir your inner spark, and he says, "Not me, us," as he gestures to the oligarchs. He knows that if he runs, they're going to stop him like a stolen car. And he'll easily surrender because it bought a lot of time for laying mines in all the grassroots. Suddenly, the tiniest of movements gets you blown apart. Suddenly, you're in a play that's set on an election day, and voting for the fire, unaware you're playing Joan of Arc. Suddenly, the shepherd pulls the rug and slips a hood across your clueless mug, and everything goes zero dark. I'm gonna warn you once more before it's 2024 and you fuck around and find out who your heroes are. To take a step back from the herd, and you'll learn that you can spot who all the shearers are. If you really want to know the product that they're selling, I can take you where the mirrors are. If you think your voice is finally ready, I can tell you where the lyrics are. I hid them in a box I had to bury neath the cobble when they carpet bombed the promenade and raided all the street bazaars. Now all we've got's the marketplace, and you're too broke to even bother asking what the options for your treatment are. Suddenly, the raw debris of homeless human dignity will find it has 100 teeth for every badge and sweeper's arm. Suddenly, they speak in solidarity and each is armed. Suddenly, the sheep can see the shepherd for his truest form and all pitch in at once to help him buy the farm. And now it's zero dark, and all is calm and peaceful save the distant wail of sirens that approach beside the flames of dawn. Suddenly, the carrot's just a string that's on a stick, and all your movements make you sick because the prize is gone. Now, we could go and flee into the forest low and meek, or we can exercise our right to feast and go and graze on Biden's lawn. Because he's been sowing seeds that seep a toxin out to sap a bit from each of us and keep on leaching decades after Biden's gone. So regardless who they summon out of hell to come and do the job, it will not feel like Biden's gone. But in that time of hopelessness, you cannot trust the shepherd when he once again comes asking you to humor him his siren song. And it's cute that you can innocently, honestly assume that's just a symptom of a system that was wired wrong, and not the standard feature, basic function, primary objective of a mass hypnosis firebomb. You don't need to know the words to cry along. Someday it'll hit you like an officer who pistol whipped their ride along. Broke his jaw and kept his job and kept it moving right along. That voting isn't red or blue or black or white or right or wrong. Voting's like a firing squad where you can choose the firearm. It's slow extinction by and large. It's Super Tuesday supercharged. It's all your futures, roots and all, just tossed out on a garbage barge. It's everybody dropping out to push the biggest oligarch. It's everybody voting fire, registered as Joan of Arc.